Okay, so welcome everyone. We're really happy to see you all here this evening, and we are happy to have Bryan Klimkiewicz here with us tonight to share with us some information about the new IEP documents and answer some questions. My name is Beth Reel, and I'm one of the co-executive directors at the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. I see many familiar faces, but some that are new, so that's great. And I just want to introduce Joviana Morales. She's going to give some information about our session next week that will be in Spanish. So, Jovi.
Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Joviana Morales, consultora de padre bilingüe de CPAC. Para los que necesitan la información en español, esta sesión de hoy es en inglés. La sesión de la semana que viene, que es el 16 de marzo, es en español. Para esta sesión de hoy no hay intérprete, ya que habíamos coordinaron otra sesión para la semana que viene. Voy a poner en la sección de chat voy a poner en el chat el enlace para los que quieran participar en la sesión en español y necesitan registrarse. Van a encontrar el enlace en el chat. Si tienen una pregunta, por favor, déjenme saber. Pero para esta sesión no hay intérprete. Si me pueden confirmar los que hablan español o están buscando la sesión en español, que ven el enlace. Lo pueden poner en el chat si es necesario.
Thank you, Jovi. Did you put the link in the chat?
Mm-hmm.
I heard you say it. I didn't see it pop up.
Y se pueden quedar para aquellos que son bilingües o entienden el inglés, pero desean no hablar, está bien, se pueden quedar. Pero si quieren participar en la sesión de la semana que viene, ahí tienen el enlace. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jovi. I appreciate you helping out this evening.
You're welcome.
So we are, Jovi and I are both from the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. And just briefly, for those of you who are not familiar with our center, we are the Parent Training and Information Center for Connecticut. So each state in the United States and territories has at least one Parent Training and Information Center federally funded by the U.S. Department of Education. And we also work closely with the State Department of Education here in Connecticut. And we have some funding from some smaller grants as well. So our purpose is to support families of children with disabilities, as well as students and professionals to know how to support students with disabilities, and for families so that they can learn how to advocate for their own children and navigate the special education system. So we're not advocates, but we support families in learning how to advocate for their own children. So just a little bit more on the disclaimer that I talked about a few minutes ago. This is a public forum. This will be recorded and posted publicly, so be mindful of the information that you choose to share. We are not attorneys, and this discussion should not be considered legal advice. And in the event that you wish to discuss specifics regarding your child, please feel free to reach out to us. I will put all of our contact information in the chat so that you can know where to find us. And we'll attempt to, Bryan and I will attempt to answer all the questions presented. But if we are not able to get to all the questions tonight, then feel free to reach out. And if we can't answer something, or we reach out to Bryan, and Bryan is very gracious in answering questions when they arise. So with that being said, please post your questions in the chat. If we have time, as it gets closer to 7 o'clock, if we go through all the questions in the chat, people may be able to answer them live, but there's a lot of people on the call tonight, so it's more challenging to do questions out loud. So please post them in the chat. And without further ado, I want to introduce Bryan Klimkiewicz from the Connecticut State Department of Education. And he's the division director at the Bureau of Special Education. So welcome, Bryan. We're really happy to have you here.
Thanks so much, Beth. Much appreciated. And thank you, Joviana, as well. It's always a pleasure to be on with CPAC, and really excited to share information with you this evening. Just a little bit about the structure for tonight. We have about an hour scheduled, so we're looking to wrap up the session at 7 o'clock. Although if we end earlier, that's fine as well. I know how busy you all are. So first of all, I wanted to thank you for your interest in this initiative. I have a short slide deck prepared for you that I'll run through with just some high-level updates and an overview of the progress that we've made with regard to the implementation of the new IEP document, Individualized Education Program template for July 1, 2022, as well as the system that's going to support that starting in July and moving forward in the future. At that point in time, I'll pause for any questions that you may have. So really, I'm interested in hearing from you where your anxieties are, what questions you have. And as Beth said, we'll do our best to share answers with you today or bring back information in the future. So thank you for the opportunity. We'll also have an opportunity to share some resources on our website, as well as training materials for parents. So I'm anxious to share those with you as well, and look forward to the conversation. At this point, I'll share my screen with you, and we'll get started. Please don't hesitate to submit questions as I go through. And once I complete this slide deck here, I can certainly go back in. We don't want to start at the end of the slideshow. That's one thing for sure. We'll start right at the beginning. We definitely would finish before 7 if that happened. So once again, my name is Bryan Klimkiewicz. I'm the Special Education Division Director, coming into my 5th year now in the department. It's been an honor to represent the Bureau of Special Education. We have amazing consultants that work on our team, very bright, committed individuals. And it's an honor to represent them and to work under Commissioner Russell Tucker and our Deputy Commissioner Desi Nesmith. And this work obviously is collaborative in that our department is very integrated with our academic office and student support system within the state. So I really appreciate my colleagues' support and collaboration with regard to this rollout. So this process really started a while back. Actually, when I first started, I held regional sessions with parents and educators to get us input and feedback around special education in general. And specifically within those sessions, we also received feedback on the current IEP document. And it was pretty united as far as an interest to improve the current template that we have. There's nothing there's no errors or no violations or issues with our current IEP document. It's actually a very good document. When we looked at other state templates, Connecticut should be proud of the work that went in to develop the current IEP that we're using for our students. I think what happened though is that over time, as new initiatives and requirements came into play, the document became more and more crowded and busy, if you will, as things got added over the years. There's another process that is called education benefit. It's a training that happens where we look at a student's IEP over the course of 3 years to ensure continuity of services for that student. It's a really tremendous process, actually, that's supported by CERC and other partners, where you can take that comprehensive look through an IEP. And within the context of that training, as valuable it is, you notice issues with the flow of the document. Our present levels and performance are on page 4, and then you have to flip over to goals and objectives on page 7 to see if there is alignment and to see that kind of congruity, lack of continuity that would happen from year to year to be able to inform the team to have a different perspective. So with a combination of the feedback that we received on those sessions, as well as the looking at the IEP flow and having a common interest in improving that, we engaged in a 2-year process to revise our template. I am very proud of the place that we ended up. We had a representative group of individuals, a work group, if you will, with all walks of life, parents, educators, attorneys, general education educators. It was an amazing group. I learned much from them, and in the process resulted in a template that we're very proud to move forward. Within that context, so that really drove the need for a system to be able to support that new IEP. And as you saw on the previous slide, we are in a partnership with Public Consulting Group. Public Consulting Group has a vast knowledge and experience with special education data systems. They've rolled out several other states prior to Connecticut, and really it was a unanimous decision to partner with them to be able to bring that work to Connecticut. And like most things, the system is in place, but we've Connecticutized it to ensure that, look, we're not just putting a new form in place or a new document, it's really a process. We wanted to ensure that the system supports the process of special education, that it informs the planning and placement teams and those that are charged with designing programs for our student, that walks individuals through a process. So it's not a data entry system. It's not, although data is a very important component of the system, it was designed with that flow and that process at the heart of the improvement activities moving forward. Like anything else, adults adults and really all age spans have difficulty with change. So we have a comprehensive plan in place, a 5-year strategic plan for training, which I'll talk to you in a little bit about, to help support educators. And this has been a challenging 2 years that we've had for a variety of reasons that I don't need to go into, but we are aware that our parents, our students, our educators are focused on recovery and recoupment and and establishing new and improved practices moving forward. So we do want to be understanding of all of the issues that are impacting us in the state, the mitigation strategies, the supporting students and engaging students, the staffing shortages that our districts and our private special education programs are facing. And this is not a Connecticut only issue. These are issues that are happening across the country, and we know Connecticut is not alone in this. So there's been a tremendous amount of understanding and effort to support districts, because even under the most ideal conditions, when change happens and there's a new template and a new system that adults have to learn, there is a period of time to understand those changes and to be able to perfect those changes. What we are excited about, just to highlight a couple things on this slide, is that this system is really designed to reduce the local paperwork burden. There are many forms that are required along the lines of the special education process. We've built in those required forms in the system. So again, for ease of use and efficiency purposes, the system also has a parent portal, which has the capability and the capacity to share information from the district to the parent and obtain consent for evaluation or consent for provision of services. And any documents that are completed within the system can be shared with the parent electronically. The system is extremely accessible. in that any type of technology can access the system, whether it be a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, or computer. If a parent, for whatever reason, doesn't have access to technology, of course, those required forms can also be printed out as hard copy and mailed and or presented to a parent in person. So it's a very accessible system in that sense. Another very exciting component about this system is the fact that this system will translate all documents within the 504 and IEP process in the top 10 languages in the state. So if there is a Spanish-speaking family member or a member of the PPT, or that document will be printed out real time in their native language, and not only the template, but also the content within that document. So there's really some very exciting features of this system. We're not only looking at compliance with, as you can see, the second bullet, we're also looking for high quality product and output within the system to help our students grow and achieve to the maximum extent possible. This is a list of all of the different components within the system. We have a time frame where these modules will be rolled out and training that supports each of these components. There's a user guide and manual. We have recorded webinars for educators to be able to access to utilize the system. But I'll say the most important training an individual can have within the school setting is to use the system. The system is designed to be intuitive. We are building in supports and tools within the system. There will be training, which I'll again talk about in a few slides a little bit in more depth. But you can see the variety of modules. It's not only the IEP and the Section 504 system, there's also required data collections. And again, that's going to alleviate responsibilities on the district end that are currently in place with our special education data collection system. That will be obsolete. The data that we need will be available to us, and data managers and directors will still have a role, obviously, in ensuring that that data is timely and accurate, but we'll no longer have to ask districts to submit it. It'll all be contained within the system. So very exciting capabilities and components. There are a few things that are highlighted, not highlighted in yellow, that will be rolled out at a later time. For example, our MTSS/SRBI management module won't go live until July 1, 2023. That's a year out. The other important point that I like to make around training is that this is a slow rollout. We're not asking districts to take all of the current IEPs that they have and transform them into the new template. As students have planning and placement meetings in the next school year, they will then have the new template and the new document in place for an annual review, as an example. So a student may not have a new IEP if they don't have a planning and placement meeting in the fall or in the winter. Let's say the next planning and placement team meeting isn't until May 2023. That will really be that student's first document in the new system. There really wouldn't be a need for the district to go into that for that student purposes moving forward. So by the end of that first year, each district will have a comprehensive ability to share, or a comprehensive, every student will have a new IEP and related documentation within the system at the end of that first year. So again, very high level. We've been in partnership with PCG for a couple of years now in the build and design of the system. The pilot districts are actually just concluded a week ago on the IEP module. We received amazing feedback from our districts, and this will help inform us on how we can improve things before rollout on July 1. And of course, our statewide implementation is on July 1, 2022. I'll visit the website a little bit later after I take time to answer your questions. I want to make sure we get to your initial questions on the information I've shared thus far. Again, I want to thank the districts that have been involved. We are currently reviewing the themes that came up on the usability of the system and where further detail needs to be provided, how we can improve the interaction and the user experience, as well as to ensure that there are no bugs in the system and things that are working as they were designed. And the districts that engaged in this pilot also ran their current system. So they weren't using the new, it was data that is not new data, if you will. We had them take case study formats and work through bringing a student from general ed all the way through the process. And in that sense, they were able to test and address all of the capabilities of the system within that process. And we received some really great feedback. We do have a list of the districts here. If you were interested, it's also included in our FAQ document. I'm just about finishing now. I have a few more slides that I wanted to share with you that are specific around training. We have what's called IEP Quality Training. All of those 20 districts that were pilots for us had an opportunity to train their core group in what's called IEP Quality Training. This is a series that does not prepare you to use the new system, although it provides a wonderful groundwork and a foundation on the process of special education from early childhood all the way through our young adults who exit our system when they turn 22. So we have a series of modules that are both live as well as recorded, and those materials are all housed on one platform. So what I wanted to share with you is just a visual right now. There's a link here that's going to be very important because we also designed a parent module as a part of this. And I did want to share that to you as a resource. You can go through that module and view it at your own time, on your own time. It's fairly lengthy. It's just under an hour, I believe, or right around that time, but you can break it up into segments if you don't have that much time in one sitting. So as mentioned, this is a foundation of the special education process, all of the important components. And it's the nuance here is that it is framed within the new system. So there are screenshots and there's information shared about how the system can support the special education process. Again, it's not user training and how to navigate the new system, but it does provide that nuance and that alignment with the new system. So we also have regional sessions that are happening right now through the remainder of this school year that are completely sold out. We've booked those through. We do remind districts that it's not a requirement to go through this quality training before the IEP goes live on July 1, but we will offer this training all through next year, the following year after that, and another year after that. So we have a 4-year plan, and we assume we will have to revise and update the training, but there's a long-term process to ensure that everybody has access to this. There is a parent module, as I mentioned, that's both in English and in Spanish. And that link on the previous slide will take you directly to that module. If you're curious, they're very well done, very professional training modules. We partnered with AIR, which is a nationally known educational experts around professional development and training. We had a steering committee to work on, including members of CPAC, who worked on content, and we really have a product, again, that we're proud of. Not a perfect product, so we're not satisfied ever. We want to continuously improve. So we do continue to receive feedback on these modules, and our concept will be to continuously improve these materials and resources over the course of the next year to support this change. Finally, I just wanted to mention we are supporting our school districts with what's called CTSED's user training, where we'll train experts within the districts. Each district was allotted a certain number of slots. roughly 2 individuals per school building that could serve as an expert trainer to support the rest of the staff within their schools. So those sessions will happen over the summer months, and there will be supplementary materials that the experts will have access to, including our trainers from our partners at Public Consulting Group, from CERC, and from the RESC Alliance. So we have a cadre of support beyond the Special Education Bureau to be able to provide comprehensive support as our educators learn how to navigate this new system. So Beth, that's the slide deck for now. I don't know if any questions came up as I was communicating through those slides, and I'll pause and stop and unshare. And then what I'd like to do is go into a little bit more depth on the IEP document itself over the course of the next minutes after we take some time to answer some questions, if there are any.
Oh, you have questions, Brian. You sure do.
All right.
So the first one is an easy one. Will you share the slides?
Of course.
Okay. And my apologies. I didn't think to ask you for them before to get them to people prior to.
Yes.
So we will get those slides to everyone.
Thank you.
The next one is, there are training sessions offered both online and in person at places like ACES. Are those slots filled? Will it more be open for educators to attend? I think you kind of
Yes
touched on
and
that.
yes. Yeah. So we, as I said, we sold out standing room only, if you will, for those sessions very quickly, because school districts were very proactive in, we asked them to identify core team members within their school districts, understanding that every single educator wouldn't be trained before the launch in July 1. So there is a break in the IEP quality training while we teach districts to navigate the system. So the IEP quality training happens up until June, the end of June. And then in July through September, we're focused on navigating the system. And then at the end of August and September, again, new sessions will be available for educators to access on the IEP quality training piece. And those dates will be shared soon. So they'll be shared sooner rather than later for the fall and for the spring of 23.
Great, thank you. Okay, what is a good way to communicate if we find discrepancies once we receive the document?
Discrepancies once you receive the document. So I don't know if that person can expand on that a little bit more. If is that a question about once you receive a finalized IEP that is new?
Renee, do you want to unmute?
Or if there are issues
Can you unmute?
for the portal?
Yeah, that's when you were talking about the portal.
Hey, Renee.
So, hi. So if there were any discrepancies, sometimes it's an email and then you guys have to look it over, and then a couple of meetings, come on in person. Let's see if we can find them. Like, would the portal be a good place to communicate? Hey, look at goal number 2, or related service X. Like, is it meant to communicate that way also?
That's a great question. So the parent portal is strictly designed to share documents. So it doesn't necessarily replace communication that happens either in person or via email with the school. If you receive the document, let's say you receive a finalized IEP, there's an issue that you have with the IEP and that you need to communicate back with the district. There is a way to do that in the system, but we'll have more information and specifics on that when we go live and roll that out. But I would encourage parents to continue to communicate the way they are via email. If you have discrepancies in the IEP or there's an error in the IEP that you notice, to get that information back. A prior written notice is no longer part of the IEP. So a parent can expect to receive the IEP and the prior written notice as 2 separate documents within that same planning and placement team meeting. So it's important for parents, once they do receive prior written notice, to look at and ensure that information is accurate. And then if there are any questions, to navigate the way that you have been with the districts in the past.
Great. There was a question about student involvement in the development of the IEP, and I did respond about the CPAC's student focus groups and CERC student focus groups. Do you know? I don't know if there were any others. Those were the two that I was aware of.
Yeah, I'd love to. I don't know if I'll be able to put my fingers on it close enough, but you're absolutely right. We received amazing feedback from students that we incorporated, and I hope I can pull up the slide for you so you can take a look at it. But essentially, we took the current pages of the IEP, posted them on the walls on giant Post-it, and the students kind of went to town on it. And so I do have that now. Let me just share my screen real quick with you all so you can see what I'm talking about here. Bear with me. So share screen. I want the PowerPoint that says IEP. This was really cool. So I don't know if you can see this here. Let me just try to slideshow from current slide. So you can see this, the students. I'm trying to zoom in here a little bit so you could see their input. It was awesome. It was such a great process. You can see here, too long, too congested, don't understand this part. So it was really neat to get that perspective from our students as well. We'll see. I mean, you know, like I said, nothing is perfect ever. So we're constantly going to improve. So I think the first year is going to be critical. We want to hear from parents. We want to hear from students. We want to hear from our educators about this shift and this change with the new template. Is it easier? I mean, did we achieve our goal or not? Are there tweaks and improvements? PCG within the system has a development cycle that's on a quarterly basis, if you will. So if we notice something that needs to be changed or improved, we have multiple opportunities to do that within the system.
So there was also a question about PCG and data security, student security. So will PCG be responsible for student data security?
That's all set. That happens way outside my pay grade, and that's a different lane than I work in the program area of special education. But there is on the legal end of things, a student confidentiality requirement, and there's actually a whole separate contract with PCG around student confidentiality and data, and that's already been executed. Even before we started working with them.
And then a similar question, what steps are being taken to protect the system information from being accessed or shared without parent permission?
Yeah, the districts are under the same requirements that they are currently. So this is not new for the districts. They are currently using a system with a different vendor, and the same rules apply. So that you know, the district provides assurances that only individuals that should have access to those student records, that the district maintains that responsibility. So there are different user types within the system. So for example, a super user in the system, like a special education director or the district data manager, would be able to see multiple schools and students across schools. But if there's for example, a related service provider that has a caseload of 22, they can only access those students' information. So there are controls on the back end of the system to ensure that only the individuals that are working with that student and that should have access to those records and files do. So if you would imagine a file drawer in real life and those hard copy files, districts have to sign in and sign and date whoever accesses those files. The same thing will happen electronically on this system, is that only the individuals that have access will have an imprint in that system.
Great. Are all districts in Connecticut required to participate in the new IEP system?
Yes. Required for all of our districts.
There's an interest in the gifted and talented module. Do you know when that will be rolled out?
Yes, that will be rolled out in mid-year of the 22-23 school year. So that's the target date is January 23. It could be sooner. We're actually just getting started with the build of the gifted and talented module now. And then we'll of course pilot that, but the target date right now is January 23.
Okay, and does the parent module integrate with common cloud storage platforms, and is there any open API?
I'm going to punt on that one, Beth. Those are some initials I'm not positive about, but
Yeah.
I will say this is that the parent portal is the system. So it is the same, it's the same system that the district is using, which is cloud-based, protected information, confidential information. The the documents can be shared back and forth confidentially within that structure. But I'm not sure. I would have to go back and check. So if we can document that question, I can bring it back to our IT team, and they can more intelligently answer that question than I could.
Okay, I will save the chat and we'll capture all of these questions. I have annual reviews, September 2022. What happens if I don't have enough training to navigate the new IEP?
Yeah, that's a question that we get pretty frequently. So we know there will be, this is new for everyone. So, and we know there will be early users of the system. For example, some of our students that are moving from birth to 3 into the public schools will turn 3 on July 2 or 3 or 4. Birthdays will happen over the summer, and those planning and placement teams will need to happen. We also know that there are several meetings that occur over the summer. We have programs that are year-round for our students. We have extended school year. We have potential changes in placement and things like that. So even if the expert user training hasn't happened yet, the district director and data manager will receive the resources and the information needed to be able to generate a meeting and a document. But it's going to be hard. That first meeting is going to be challenging because it's going to be new. So what I will say is this, the more that you're in the system, the easier it becomes. So I think we have to be prepared as a state for those first few months to be very challenging. And then once you turn the corner, it's like anything else, it becomes secondhand nature. And I think by the end of that first year, looking back, we're going to forget what the old system was like and then just be experts, moving forward. I had the opportunity to do a in-district, when I was a director in the state, an in-district change. And, it's about a 3-year process for everyone to really grasp it and really get to feel comfortable where you feel like you're rolling. The first year is challenging. The second year is even better. And by that 3rd year, like I said, there's no questions. So if there is a September annual, that team would have access to recorded webinars on, here's how you generate a PPT notice. Here's how you work through goals and objectives. So each section of the system will have a user manual as well as a recorded session to help people walk through. And we did try to build the system intuitively so that it's a step-by-step process. If there are errors in the document, and I think, Renee kind of mentioned this, that if there's something missed or an error, you can't finalize the document. It won't allow you to go through unless all of the necessary data are there. Now that doesn't mean it's not what you talked about. So there still could be discrepancies or issues that the district and the parent need to communicate back and forth. But we do feel like PCG has had experience, with 7 other states in these rollouts. So we would ask districts to just be vocal with us, let us know what your needs are, how we can best support those first meetings, and to provide us feedback to ensure that's as smooth as possible.
Great. Couple more. Will all of the teacher reports, evaluations, etc., which are reviewed at a PPT meeting be uploaded to the IEP system?
Yes, they can. There's a section anytime there's an evaluation for that evaluation to be input in the data as an upload, and then that's accessible to the team once it's in there. So again, depending on your permission levels, that is the system has that capability.
And then to go along with the sign-ins, will parents receive a notification every time someone accesses my child's file to edit or add something to the IEP?
No.
Okay.
No, they'll receive notification every time there's a information or a document sent to the parent portal. They'll receive a one-time code where they can click on that link, click on it, access that. If there's an action to be taken, whether it's a signature or confirming receipt that you received an IEP or received a notice, that will be time-stamped once you access and enter the system.
Great. Will parents be able to print from the portal?
Yes, whoa, let me think about that. So I think it would depend on which device you're accessing the portal from and how that connects. If you have a Bluetooth, for example, you know, if I'm on my phone at home and I download a PDF, I can print it to my home printer. That's possible, but it depends on that connection that you have to your printer and which device that you're on. But you can certainly download any document, whether it be to your laptop, desktop, printer, however, you know, whatever connection that you have there. What I did want to share, Beth, is that when the system goes live, PCG will have a one-page informational infographic that will describe the parent portal and aspects of this. And I would assume that that question would be addressed in that one-page document as well.
Great. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? Will related service providers that are contracted be able to access documents from multiple students?
Yes.
And if a provider is also a parent of a child with an IEP, will they be able to view both?
They would be, it would be a different role. So that parent, that provider, let's say it's a speech and language pathologist, they would go into the system as a professional and see their caseload. They would not see their students, their child's IEP. But as a parent, they would receive a notification and go into a different part of the system and access their students' records in that manner. So it would be a different entry point into the system, not something that person can navigate back and forth from.
Interesting. Okay. How far back will we be able to see in the system?
Well, it's a brand new system as of July 1. So that will be the starting point for the system moving forward. What we are doing we are in the process of working with the current vendors that the school districts have to ensure that archive records. So if there is a document repository and there's information in the old system, we're pulling that down into the nomenclature that is needed for an upload into the system as of July 1, 2022. We're running through all IEP and 504 documents 3 years back in that data pool, as well as anything that's in the document repository as far back as the district has records. So that will be uploaded into the new system, but only as static documents, because we have a new form and a new document. It's not a data transfer, it's a document transfer. So students could potentially have, if the district wanted to go back as far as 10 years, they could go back and enter that information in the system, and it would be archived in that student's document repository.
Great. Okay, will there be any drop-down menus on the new IEPs, such as goal banks or other common areas?
There are drop-down menus in the new system. There is not a goal bank. So that's not because we want to make the process more difficult. It's because we want to make sure that and ensure that, you know, students' goals and objectives are written based on their present levels of performance, which the team all works collaboratively on.
Great. If the PPT team meets for a new evaluation of a student to analyze the data and observations to see if they decide to provide special education services, and the team decides that the student does not need an IEP, will the student be assigned a registration number in the education department for evidence of the meeting?
So students that are being referred for special education are captured in the system. If you go through the eligibility process and the PPT determines that that student is not eligible, they are not in the special education, they wouldn't be in this active in the special education module, but the record of the referral remains with the student. It remains in that student's file drawer. They're returned to general education. So ultimately, we do have an MTSS or an SRBI system module that will be in place in 23. So there will be general education students that either don't have a 504 plan or an IEP in the system, but may have been referred at one point in time. So that those documents are memorialized in the system and maintained for record keeping purposes.
Great, that was a good question. If you have multiple children in the system, will you need different unique logins or user accounts?
Yeah, so there's no login or password to access the system. It's all based on one-time codes that you'll receive as documents become available and as information is requested from the parent. So that's a nice feature in that you don't have to remember a different username or a different password. It will be unique to that student. So you would receive an email notification for your oldest son or daughter, and then your younger son or daughter. That'll be two separate notifications, one-time click in direct access.
Great. We are at the bottom of the list.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh,
I will, there's a couple
one
of-
more question about
Oh, good. Okay.
who sends that, just in response to that response, who sends the email?
It's generated from the system when the district is prepared to share a document or there's an action that takes place that is driven by the district.
Okay, and then another follow-up question. So then is it incumbent on the parent to save those documents?
It is, but the district is also maintaining those records. So the district's responsibility to maintain records remains. Parents should and could save those, but that's not the only, the school district still has the primary file and record keeping for that student all through the special education process. And they're required to maintain that over the course of years under Connecticut record retention laws.
Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were starting to say something
No,
else.
this has been great. And I wanted to spend more time with questions, but I also just wanted to share as a part of, we will share the PowerPoint, but I also wanted to just show you a quick couple of resources. So this is our state IEP, new IEP website. There's information about the quality training here that I mentioned. We also have some FAQ documents. The IEP itself is here. We will have additional resources, including recorded webinar sessions that are very brief and break down the IEP into multiple segments. So I did want to share that. These recorded sessions, these videos are outdated at this point in time, so these will be removed. And we're holding sessions on a weekly basis from now through May that will focus on a specific area of the IEP. I also wanted to share one, which you may be familiar with, one other resource, which is an IEP crosswalk. And this is shared in our IEP quality training. We also have another version of this that includes visuals. And here's the current IEP, here's the new IEP. You can see some of the overall things that I went over, a different flow. Our new IEP refers to sections, not pages of the IEP. And so this is a nice document to take a look at, to say, oh, these are the differences, or this is how the system will capture that information differently than previously. And that's being, this document's being converted so that it's what's called 508 compliant and accessible. And I do anticipate that in the next couple of days, we'll have that crosswalk with the visual as well. So I did want to share that. And finally, just, you know, I did mention that we do have the, you know, on our IEP, new IEP website, we also have the template to the new document. And so you can see here. So what I wanted to mention is that this is pretty lengthy, but the new format is adaptive. And what do I mean by that? Let's say the student is, so here's a good example. If the student is deaf or hard of hearing and a language and communication plan is required, in the system when this box is checked, the entire language and communication plan is populated within the system for the planning and placement team to design. So the system expands and you know, contracts as needed. So each student's document will be a different length. Similarly, if that student's not of, and I'm sorry if I'm making you dizzy, if that student's not of transition age, that section would not apply. So that wouldn't be part of that student's program. So I know we don't have time tonight to go into further depth, but we are open to and excited to hear from you on the, again, usability, readability, and understanding the new template versus the old, and how we can continue to improve. And I get excited because, you know, a lot of the issues that came up in our regional sessions we have addressed. This is just one example here. If a student has an amendment and something changes in the IEP, those sections are captured right on the cover section, that first section of the IEP, with an overview of what those changes were. A lot of times, even though the parent and the team agree, okay, we don't have to have a planning and placement team meeting, I agreed to change that part. We said, well, we want that highlighted in some way. We want the parent and the school to understand what exactly changed, you know, from the last time we had a meeting. This puts it right up front and gives you a real nice summary and snapshot of the changes of the amendment. So I'll stop again, and I know we have a few minutes left if there's any final questions. And Beth and Joviana, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to share this information. And the questions have been great. I know there were a couple questions I wasn't sure about that I will bring back that information to the group on, but we're looking to do more to support you over the course of the next months as hopefully the snow melts and we get to warmer weather.
So there's a question about the crosswalk. Once it goes to the 508 compliance, I'm assuming it's going to be on the State Department website.
Yes, it will.
Yes, yep, and CPAC will share that as well. And then some questions about further training. So in addition to what Bryan spoke about around the training, CPAC will be offering training. I believe we have some plans for the rest of this year with some specific groups that we'll put out. And then we have plans also to train throughout next year, because we know once families get that document in their hands,
that's when the questions will start rolling in.
Sure.
Yes.
For sure.
Until it becomes real, it's hard to visualize and conceptualize, but I agree with you, Beth. I think, you know, in September, there's going to be a real need for that real-time technical assistance.
Definitely. And then there were some comments about students, you know, learning the document. And I think that's a great idea to do some student-specific sessions.
Wonderful idea.
Have, you know, train students and then have them work with other students. That might be an idea of things to do, of something to do.
Yeah, our youngest students coming into the system, you know, will know nothing different, you know, or new families just being, you know, introduced to the special education process. But for those families that have known the current IEP up to 20 years, that's going to be a significant learning curve for that final year of students' eligibility. So parents and students all along the spectrum will have different experiences with this change.
Definitely. And if you are not on our newsletter sign up, I just put our email in the chat because that's another way to stay up to date with this information as it comes out from the State Department. We put it in our newsletters. There's also the Bureau Bulletin, which I don't have the link for, but I believe if you search Connecticut Bureau Bulletin, you can sign up for that as well. And that's a great way to stay updated. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bryan. We really appreciate you taking the time to come this evening and
My pleasure.
answer our rapid fire questions. And we certainly will reach out again and follow up, with other questions that come to us. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Be safe.
Yes. Good night.
Good night. Take care.
You too.